When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everybody, my name is Jose Prado, Man-Made Survival, and thank you so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I greatly appreciate it because this information is getting very important and it's evolving. It's evolving in the way that the information has been delivered. It's evolving in not only is it what's happening today, but you can follow the information to where it's going to eventually lead you to what's coming next. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because what has been happening here lately now is not just affecting the population, but it's affecting the government too and our military, as we're going to talk about today. But before I go any further, I want to remind you about the very first book that I've written, which is called Preppers Secrete Cache. And you can go to www.preppersecretcache.com and you can order it on there. Or you can just click the link below. And I want to remind you that the book is free. And all we need help with is the shipping. There's no need for anything else, which is it's gonna be about $7-8, something like that. But anyways, it's free, so I hope that you order it and that you give me your honest review, and I greatly appreciate it. But anyways, another thing I want to remind the audience is that I have raised the level for the level of crisis to red. All right, and I'm gonna put it on the screen. And it reads, red, bug out. Everyone in place in their bugging location. Full self-sustained infrastructure running and 24-hour perimeter surveillance or checks. The reason I say that is because things are getting really bad, all right? And states are starting to close their doors, and I'm pretty sure here eventually in a few more days, maybe a week or more, they might impose a entire nation lockdown where nobody goes anywhere, other than the local store, and that's it. So if they do that, I suggest that you go to your bug out location before that happens. Or if your home is your bugging location and that's where you're gonna make your last stand, then you need to go ahead and have everything in place that you need to make your backyard your garden and get chickens and everything. Because what we're gonna be talking about, not just in this video, but the next 2 or 3 videos, is how the system is collapsing, and a lot more people are gonna be forced to go to food banks or get government help, and that might stress the system enough to where there's not enough for everyone, and riots and things may come along. But anyways, the first headline that I have here is Trump admits virus is real. All right, that's a video that I'm gonna pull up and that you're gonna watch here in a second, and then we're gonna come back and talk about it.
1 second.
Were you surprised when you saw these projections? The numbers are sobering.
They're very sobering. Yeah, when you see 100,000 people, that's at a minimum number. Now, what we're looking at, and as many people as we're talking about, whatever we can do under that number and substantially under that number, we've done that through really great mitigation. We've done that through a lot of very dedicated American people. That 100,000 is, according to modeling, a very low number. In fact, when I first saw the number, and I asked this a while ago, they said it's unlikely you'll be able to attain that. I think we're doing better than that. Now, I think we have to see, but I think we're doing better than that because, as John said, that would be, a lot of lives taking place over a relatively short period of time. But think of what would have happened if we didn't do anything. I mean, I've had many friends, business people with great, actually, common sense. They said, why don't we write it out? A lot of people have said, a lot of people have thought about it. Write it out. Don't do anything. Just write it out and think of it as the flu. But it's not the flu. It's vicious. When you send a friend to the hospital and you call up to find out how is he doing, it happened to me, where goes to the hospital, he says goodbye, he's sort of a tough guy, a little older, a little heavier than he'd like to be, frankly. And you call up the next day, how's he doing? And he's in a coma? This is not the flu. So we would have seen things had we done nothing. But for a long while, a lot of people were asking that question, I think, right? I was asking it Also, I mean, a lot of people were saying, well, let's just write it out. This is not to be written out, because then you would have been looking at potentially 2.2 million people or more. 2.2 million people in a relatively short period of time.
So when he started talking about that, it's funny how, not just with Trump, but everyone else, it's not real until it happens to them, all right? Like Trump said that, you know, he has a friend, an older friend, a heavy-set friend, that he called one day, and he's doing good. The next day he calls, he's in a coma, all right? Now, to Trump, that became very real. And they were talking about the projection, the 100,000 to 200,000. You know, now they're elevated to 240,000, and I'm sure it's going to keep going and going. So, another thing that Trump said in that conference is that if they didn't do anything, that the number of dead would be in the millions. All right, if people were trying to just live life as normal, they wouldn't be able to, because just the number of deaths would have been overwhelming. But anyways, at least Trump has admitted it, all right? To all the people who kept saying that this is a hoax to just damage Trump, you know, Trump just pretty much told you what we've been saying and discredited the fact that it's a hoax to hurt him, you know, in the elections or whatever. If he came out and say, yes, this thing is real, then it's no longer a hoax, right? I mean, the whole basis of it's a hoax to damage Trump has just fallen completely apart. But all right, let's continue. All right, so now that Trump has said, or you know, has come out and say that this thing is real, that it's really going on, and that if they didn't do anything, there was no government intervention, the number of dead would be great, right? Now, we're gonna move on to other heads of states and you know, one other person who have said that, you know, pretty much this thing is real, all right, because it's happened to them. The first one we're gonna start with is with Chris Cuomo, and I know he's not a head of state or anything, but you know, he is the brother of Andrew Cuomo, you know, the governor of New York, which is one of the epicenters right now. So the title starts, shivering, hallucinating, bitten like a piñata. Chris Cuomo's haunted night with coronavirus. This from greenwichtime.com. And here's a quote. I was up all night, he said during Wednesday's edition of Cuomo Prime Time, broadcast live from his basement, where he is now self-quarantining after announcing one day earlier that he tested positive for the novel coronavirus. The cause of Cuomo's insomnia? Quote, this virus came at me. I've never seen anything like it, Cuomo said, telling viewers that he was racked with a fever around 103 degrees that wouldn't quit. Quote, it was like somebody was beating me like a piñata. He continued, I was shivering so much I chipped my tooth. All right, so things that we have said, and you know, CNN, when at first, and a lot of people did the same thing. At first, it was just like the flu, you know, it's just being overblown out of proportion, yada yada yada. And now when it hits them, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. So anyways, the next thing we have is Boris Johnson learns no one is immune to COVID-19, and this is a video, and here we go.
Hi folks, I want to bring you up to speed with something that's happening today, which is that I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus, that's to say a temperature and a persistent cough. And on the advice of the chief medical officer, I've taken a test that has come out positive. So I am working from home, I'm self-isolating, and that's entirely the right thing to do.
All right, so he said that he had mild symptoms. You know, he went and visited a hospital, shook hands, obviously didn't wash his hand, or, as we know already, the virus is airborne, and that's how he got infected. Here's another video that we have. Here's the headline for that video. Live in hope. Prince Charles tells Brits to look forward to better times to come after battling coronavirus. This from The Sun. Here's that video.
Having recently gone through the process of contracting this coronavirus, luckily with relatively mild symptoms, I now find myself on the other side of the illness, but still in no less a state of social distance and general isolation. As we're all learning, this is a strange, frustrating and often distressing experience when the presence of family and friends is no longer possible and the normal structures of life are suddenly removed. At such an unprecedented and anxious time in all our lives, my wife and I are thinking particularly of all those who have lost their loved ones in such very difficult and abnormal circumstances, and of those having to endure sickness, isolation, and loneliness. As patron of a...
All right, so nobody's immune, right? And heads of state, these aren't the only ones that have been affected. For example, Russia's Vladimir Putin, he has put himself under self-isolation when he was shaking hands with a doctor, I think it was the previous day or something like that, who now came out tested positive for coronavirus. And then, I mean, of course, this doctor has been, treating patients and everything. So they don't know yet if he was sick before Putin went out there and visited the hospital, or it happened afterwards, which is why he went into self-isolation. Another place is Israel. He's also under self-quarantine. And not only him, but a lot of people in the government, top brass government, they're also under quarantine. All right, so now I want to shift this thing to our military, which is the Navy that I'm trying to talk about here. And here's the headline. A second aircraft carrier is reportedly facing COVID-19 outbreak. This from taskandpurpose.com. And let me remind you that I had read to you that there was one, all right, that had been hit with the coronavirus. So this is the second one. This is not good news, especially on the places that these aircraft carriers are, but we'll get into that. The USS Theodore Roosevelt isn't the only Navy aircraft carrier in the Western Pacific that's currently dealing with the threat of novel coronavirus, COVID-19, among its sailors. Fox News report, citing U.S. officials, that the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier has 2 sailors who have been tested positive for COVID-19 in recent days. As of Saturday evening, the Navy reported that a total of 131 service members who had tested positive for COVID-19. Also, although the service will no longer name the specific vessel infested sailors are stationed on. All right, so it's getting to the degree that the military has to stop talking about it, because that's precious information that Russia and China or any other nation like Iran, can use against us. So they're talking about that they will no longer be talking about or not giving a lot of specifics on what's going on. On the Theodore Roosevelt, they were talking about unloading 4,000 sailors and putting them in self-isolation. All right. Now on the Ronald Reagan, they said too, they're not trying to give too many specifics, but the point is that as we learned with the cruise ships, with the cruise ships, the entire Navy could potentially be a petri dish, or it could have the same outcome as the cruise ships did, with all their sailors. And that's a devastating blow, because nobody has fired a shot, and our Navy is pretty much crippled, at least in those 2 very, very massive aircraft carriers. All right, so I say that to say the following. All right, we know that we're over there in the Pacific, right, because of China. And here's one of the headlines: to deter war with China, U.S. must commit to defend Taiwan. That was from The Hill. That's just the headline. We're over there because we say that we gotta, defend Thailand, and then Guam is on that area too. And let's not forget that China has placed artificial islands on there, so that's the reason why, they're also there, and they want to fight against us, saying that we can no longer be there, even though it's international seas. But anyways, we'll find out why here in a second. Now, the next headline reads, U.S. military operations in South China Sea increase risk of confrontation, think tank says. This from the South China Morning Post. The United States intensified military activity in South China Sea last year, raising the risk of confrontation with China in the strategically important waters, according to Beijing-based think tank. The U.S. conducted 8 so-called freedom of navigation operations in the year, 3 more than in 2018, during which its vessels sailed within 12 nautical miles of land claimed or occupied by China, according to the South China Sea Strategic Situation Probing Initiative's annual report. American troops also engaged in 50 joint and multi-exercise with countries from Southeast Asia and elsewhere in the region, it said. All right, so we're always there, right? We're always helping our allies. Taiwan, we gotta help them out. To help not go to war with China, because China, they want Taiwan. They say that one day they're gonna bring it back under their flag, and they will no longer be independent because they believe that they own it, right? It's just they're not under control, or they're not in control. But anyways, so the United States is there. We talked about how they would fight if something happened with Taiwan and China. United States would come and aid Taiwan. But I found out one of the reasons why we're there, and it always has to do with energy or oil or gas, natural gas. And now that the both ships are out of commission because of the virus, China is taking advantage of this. Here's the headline: China seizes COVID-19 advantages in South China Sea. AsianTimes.com reported this. In recent days, China has conducted military drills and deployed large-scale military assets to maritime around, while at the same time officials celebrating strides made in exploits disputed energy resources in the fossil fuel-rich sea. According to China Ministry of Natural Resources, China recently conducted its most successful extraction of natural gas from gas hydrates, both in terms of volume and production, within a single day in a contested north region of the sea. The ministry trumped its quote solid technical foundation for commercial exploitation, end quote, to become the first country in the South China Sea to exploit gas hydrates, mineral deposits at the bottom of the ocean, by utilizing a horizontal well-drilled technique. All right, so there tells a lot on why we're over there, because we were protecting those assets, or those natural resources. So we would be willing to go to war with that, with them over that. Yes, we would. Just like we're in the Middle East, we've created war there, and there's a lot of times that we have threatened Russia over the pipeline that they have, going all throughout Europe. But anyways, so if we're willing to fight over oil and over natural gas, do you think that they will be willing to fight against us over those resources or other resources? The next video that I have for you, this is from this in YouTube, and that's episode 873, Scott Adams, Coffee Now, Stat. All right, and I'm going to play a clip, and then I'm going to come back and comment on it.
Hydroxychloroquine, do they all come out of the same tree bark? Cinchona trees. All right, so this gets me to my next point. So the source of these are the Andes and grown in South America. I don't know specifically what country, but I'm going to ask a very adult question right now. Are you ready? This is an adult question. Children are just going to get mad. So children, you should just sign out now. Here's an adult question. What is the military capability of the countries that are growing these trees? See where I'm going? Now, I believe these countries are sufficiently friendly with the United States that they wouldn't try to hurt us. But they do have the supply that the entire world needs. China's probably willing to pay for it. Other countries are willing to pay for that bark. It's in our backyard. If you imagine that all of the Americas are our backyard. If our military, I'm just going to say it directly, if our military needs to secure the supply for this hemisphere, including South America, if we went down and stole the supplies from South America to use in North America, we should all be shot. I mean, for that would be like a crime against humanity of the highest degree. But if there's enough of it in the Americas, and any of that stuff is going to another country outside of the Americas, isn't that a military question? Should our Marines actually be assembling off the shore of a friendly allied country just to make sure that they're not shipping this drug outside of the Americas? Right? Somebody says, stop, do not suggest military action. It's an adult question. I'm not saying what we should do. What I'm saying is it's a military issue. If we're looking at millions of deaths in this hemisphere, because that supply that is grown in this hemisphere is being shipped to another hemisphere, isn't that a homeland security problem? Isn't that a military problem?
All right, so what's your thoughts on that? I'm going to leave you with this. What is your thought on that? Because if we talked about before how China would withhold the medical supplies that we need from them, and we will be willing to immediately go to war with them, how much so will they be willing to go to war against us if we withheld the same medicine that they would potentially need as well? All right, think about that. Because that's why I keep saying that it's possible that we, not only do we have to worry about this virus, and not only do we have to worry about the coming starvation in this country, but on top of that, add war to it. All right? There's a lot that I'm saying there that has a lot of truth in it. So think about it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And I want to remind you before I sign off about my book, Preppers Secrete Cache. You can go to www.preppersecretcache.com and you can order it on there. But anyways, my name is Jose Prado, Amendment Survival, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.